Welcome to another episode of Dude, Is This Thing On? I am your host, Tyler Daswick, and joining me, as always, our producer, Emilio Cariati.
Hi, everyone. There was an odd pause there. What was that? Are you finding the right words?
Was there a weird pause?
Oh, no, you cut out for a second. Shit. Do you want it?
Oh, dang. Yeah, I'll redo it.
You fucking better.
Okay. All right.
Show us to be perfect. Our fans demand it.
Gotta be
crisp. Okay, start over.
Crisp. All right.
Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Dude, Is This Thing On? I'm your host, Tyler Daswick, and joining me, our producer, as always, Emilio Cariati.
How's it going, everybody?
Emilio, we've got a great show for the listener today. We are going to start by rolling back one of your recommendations from last week. Our last episode was all about Doom. We loved it, and you recommended Doom Resurrected, a YouTube documentary about the making of the game. So we're going to open with a little chat about that. We're going to transition into our featured segment about Dave Chappelle's new pair of Netflix specials, Equanimity and The Bird Revelation. And then we're going to close with everyone's favorite segment, the classic GB.
GB. Oh, I'm going to light some candles. Cue the jazz music.
Also,
surprise audience, you had fucking homework. Hope you watched the Doom documentary because that's what we're going to be fucking talking about.
Yeah, we have continuity now between episodes.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man.
Let's Family Guy.
Let's
at the episodes make sense. God damn it! If you didn't watch Doom, you're gonna be fucking lost. Don't even try. You'll never pick up what I'm putting down.
Absolutely. So listen, man. I first of all, I don't really know the origins of Doom Resurrected, but I'm pretty impressed with the production and the access they got. They talked to pretty much everyone you would want them to in regards to who made the game. Yeah.
Well, id Software is fucking one of the cool game developers. I don't want to throw out any names out there of game developers that I personally don't have any personal experience at all because I'm some schlup in Scottsdale, but but that I've personally known people who have fucking talked to them and have been major dicks. I've always heard that people from id Software, the company, are super cool with interviews. A little bit of the background of the interview or the documentary series, I guess. It's by a guy or a collection of people on the internet known as NoClip. They do a lot of documentaries for video game development and stuff like that. And a lot of their stuff is crowdfunded, pretty independent. It's not a big studio or anything like that. So just small guys go into id Software that people have a lot of respect for, and they pump out some really cool games, but they don't pump them out every year. They're not a big developer anymore where they're yearly releases, So they're a little bit more chill about the industry and talking to people who are genuinely interested about games in general and their games in particular.
Yeah. What I really loved about the documentary, in part one, they talk a little bit about the origins of the game and how they approached the sequel and its sort of journey from Doom 3 to Doom 4 to just Doom. I was really impressed with how much they were willing to just throw out and just scrap and be you know what, this isn't the right idea, let's just start over.
Yeah.
They started over. Didn't they start over multiple times?
Well, yeah, so Doom 4 got announced maybe 10 years ago or something like that, a fucking long time ago, the follow-up to Doom 3. And originally, I don't know how much they get into that documentary series, but if you're really interested, you can go to NoClip and you can see the full interviews with each of the three people that they interviewed for each part. And the second guy, who is the game director and writer, he had a really interesting one. And what he talks about is Doom 4, the sequel that they were going to make, and how it was fucking completely different from what we get now. It was a tactical shooter, set on Earth and the urban city, and you had to get survive. It was Halo, it was Halo 2 essentially. They were trying to rip off, and it just got stuck in development hell. And time after time after time, they would just be oh fuck this is terrible. We're exactly like you said, we're gonna scrap this and just start over fresh. So yeah, I thought that was really cool too. And they take you through the process of like, is this good? No, this is shit. Okay, fucking tear that out, throw it in the wastebasket, and let's go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I wonder. It also made me wonder why, because it's such an interesting story, and so much, there's so much sort of inherent conflict in it in terms of, we have these fans that we want to stay really loyal to. We have this new generation of video game tech that we want to embrace. We have to somehow blend this old style with all of these new expectations that our audience might have. So, I mean, I just thought it was a really cool subject to make a documentary about, but it also made me wonder, like, gosh, these sorts of ideas are being talked about all the time in video game companies. I mean, some companies are talking about them more intentionally than others, but I just wonder why. Is it just because I don't explore the world of video games that in depth that I'm not seeing these stories, or was this kind of like a unique case where someone kind of actually went behind the scenes, and that usually doesn't happen?
No, so I remember like when I was a kid, and I was even way more into video games than I am now. Now it's fucking time consuming. I don't have as much time as I used to, growing old. But when I was a kid, like growing up, especially like with the Halo games and stuff like that, they used to do vid docs all the time, like behind the scenes stuff, and they would just release it on YouTube while the game was in development. You could follow along like the progress of these people like making games. There's like a lot of transparency. But like personally, my personal opinion, as the video game industry has been ramped the fuck up, and it's making billions and billions of dollars every year. It's becoming, the next movie industry, essentially, next big thing. There's a lot less transparency. Companies don't want you to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, how they arrive to an idea, how they arrive to a certain piece of technology that they use in the game. I don't know if it's because of like competition or what, or if it's just like a general practice now. But I think the reason you're not seeing it anymore is because you're right. Nobody's actually like putting it out there. And I don't know why, because when I was younger, you can go back and look up like vid docs and stuff like that for BioShock and Halo and like the old Call of Duties and stuff like that. And you had these game developers being like, fuck yeah, dude, put a camera in my face. I'll tell you everything about what I do. Here's this shit. And you look at these polygons, it's fucking cool, right? Yeah. And look at this art I made. They're like fucking showing off, Which was awesome. I love that shit. Yeah, because I think you said like maybe an episode or so ago that you love like interviews and stuff like that, right? Yeah. Like, and I am the same thing. I love interviews. I love documentaries and stuff like that. If I can be entertained and learn something at the same time, it's a fucking double whammy. So I used to love that shit, but I think you're right. It's just not happening anymore, And I think it's because the industry is getting really big.
Yeah. Well, for what's worth, Doom Resurrected is a really good look behind the scenes at a video game company, at the making of a great game. You can find it all on YouTube. What's the channel again?
No Clip, if I remember correctly. It's all one word. You can just look them up. Just put in Doom Resurrected, Doom documentary, and it'll be like the first thing that pops up. It's a 3-parter. They're about 40 minutes each, so you finish it up in like an hour and a half.
Yeah. All right, that's Doom Resurrected. It's all on YouTube for free. Definitely watch it, especially if you're a fan of the game, because you just get to hear a lot of really excited and proud people talk about it. Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool shit. Cool shit.
All right, so moving on to our featured segment on Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle released 2 more comedy specials at the turn of the new year. The first was Equanimity, which we all expected. That was the last special that was in his uber-rich Netflix contract. And then he tacked on, sort of as a little bonus, an extra special called The Bird Revelation. The specials are really, really different in style. Equanimity is sort of a classic stand-up concert hall sort of setting, and The Bird Revelation, it almost seems like it wasn't scripted, and I think we can talk about that, but it's just Chappelle sort of at a club, kind of seems like one of those last men last man to take the stage kind of situations, and he just sits on a stool and talks for 40 minutes.
Yeah, he just riffs for a tight 47 minutes. So
yeah, but they've raised a lot of conversation. I think in the sort of the broad realm of cultural criticism and culture writing. I think people probably had more negative things to say about them than positive in terms of his perspective and his jokes and maybe his taste on them. And I don't know, man. I've felt pretty conflicted about them. Dude,
same, man. I haven't been able to stop thinking about both of these specials, especially the Bird Revelation, since I saw it a couple days ago or last week.
Yeah, me too. I think, and I guess just to start from a bird's eye view, I mean, there are parts of these I think are really funny, and
oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that I love and will rewatch just because I think the jokes are great. But and there are other parts that I keep thinking about because I feel like I need to interpret something, which is unusual for a stand-up special. And there are other parts where I'm like, man, I wish he hadn't said that. And I haven't had this wide of a spectrum of feelings with a stand-up special in a long time.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm just taking a little note. Just because that raises a question, I don't want to ask it right now, but the first question I want to ask you is, which one of the two did you like the most and why?
I think, oh man, that's a good question. I think I like the first one more when I watched them the first time, because it just pound for pound is funnier, and I kind of got what I came for. But when I went back and sort of watched the highlights of each one, in my mind, the second one stands out as really unique, and it hit me, and we'll get into this, but it hit me at the perfect moment this week in particular of something I was going through at work, and it had me thinking of it. It has me thinking of it in a different way, and I don't think I like it more, but I definitely appreciate it more, and am finding it a bit richer than I did before. I think before I had kind of dismissed it. For the listener, the Bird Revelation sort of carries more of the problematic sequences that I think a lot of people took issue with, and that was my primary impression upon leaving it, and now my impression feels like it's changing, that I didn't take away everything I could have the first time, but now I'm starting to read more into it. So my feelings are still evolving, man. But I think the easy answer is, you know, if I want to laugh and I watch Dave Chappelle to laugh more than anything, I'm going to Equanimity first.
That's funny. I'm almost the complete opposite of that, actually.
No way.
I mean, yeah. So when I listened, I fucking love comedy. You know, every comedian under the sun, I give a shot. There are a bunch of comedians that I don't think are funny at all, and that's totally cool, man. You're not my style. It's fine. Everyone's completely different. But I have a set group of comedians that I go to fucking piss myself laughing, and Dave Chappelle is one of those comedians. But alternatively, I know with Dave Chappelle, I'm going to get something to think about afterwards. I'm going to get, homework to think about. Okay. When I'm watching Dave Chappelle, I take, mental notes. What's he talking about here? Sometimes I don't understand what he's talking about, and I question, why the fuck don't I get that? I should get that. And I go and do, it's maybe this neurotic fucking thing that I do, probably. But I go in, with a notepad almost, okay, what did he say? What's the name of that? What's this reference? And try and figure out, what the fuck he's saying. And I fucking loved the Bird Revelation. I loved it because it was, and I so with these two specials, I didn't watch them when they immediately dropped. I waited to midnight to see his first two specials that came out about a year and a half ago, because Dave Chappelle had really been out of the major circuit for 10 years while he went to Africa and found himself and shit like that, right? And so I was super excited to see if he still had the chops, and I was really excited to see that he still did. But with these two, his second time around, I wanted to pace myself. I wanted to be in the absolute best mindset that I possibly could in order to see his comedy. Because I know, for me at least, it's very like mentally intensive to like listen to this guy talk. Because to me, he's not just a comedian. The guy's like a fucking prophet sometimes, And I know that fucking sounds over dramatic and people are rolling their eyes, but I really do appreciate him in that sort of way. So for the first like 3 or 4 weeks that it came out, I didn't watch it at all. And my girlfriend was like, "Hey, do you want to watch it? Do you want to watch it?" Because she loves Dave Chappelle too. And I'm like, "Nah, babe, just give me some time. I need to be in the right mindset." And last Wednesday, I had been listening to a lot of Bill Burr, who I consider like the white Dave Chappelle, kind of in the way that he tells his stories and sort of the perspective that he takes on a lot of these issues and stuff like that, right? A lot of the current social issues.
Yeah.
And so I had been watching a lot of him at work, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for Dave Chappelle. So I come home, and I'm like, hey, babe, let's watch this Chappelle special. She's like, awesome. Watch Equanimity. Fucking hysterical. Cracking up. Everything like that, right?
Yeah.
I have a couple drinks because I pause in between the two specials, and I'm like, all right, I've heard people talk that this one's really deep, and that's all I heard. I didn't read any reviews on it. I wanted to go in deep, or go in blind, sorry. So I poured myself a couple drinks, got like comfortable and stuff like that, and sat down and watched The Bird Revelation. And I laughed maybe like 2 or 3 times hard during it, but I thought it was his best special that he had ever done. It was the best piece of like,
wow,
not necessarily comedy, but just in public speaking in a way, because I mean it's a performance arts comedy, and it doesn't necessarily have to be funny. Mike Birbiglia is a really good public speaker. I wouldn't say that he's a good comedian. I don't watch Mike Birbiglia to laugh. I watch Mike Birbiglia to get like insight on this guy's mind. And Dave Chappelle's like that. And I like the fact that it was a close encounter room. Comedians are different when they do shows like on late night. Excuse me, I got the burps. When they do shows like late night, or they do like big auditorium stuff. Go back and watch Louis C.K., God rest his career, when he does stuff in front of like Madison Square Garden. It's good, but it's not like the same level as when he's doing shit in front of like a red curtain at like a shitty dive comedy bar, And that's what we get with Dave Chappelle here is him, and he openly admits it. He's like, I know this is going to upset some people, but this is me just shooting the shit. And it may not be what he believes, but it is questions that he has about society and where society is going and his concerns for it. The guy's a fucking smart man. His parents were professors. This guy is in tune with everything that's going on in a way that no other comedian is. You cannot tell me that there is another comedian out there that is as socially aware as Dave Chappelle is. And this was him getting high and just talking about stuff that's going on in his brain. And I appreciated that honesty so much. I didn't agree with everything the guy said. I agreed with a lot of it, but not everything. But I appreciated the honesty. I appreciated that effort more than anything.
Yeah, I think I agree with that final takeaway. And I agree, too, something that I think is undeniable when you watch The Bird Revelation is I think only he could have pulled that off in terms of just his sheer storytelling ability and his sheer magnetism. He closes with that scene from that book by Iceberg Slim.
Yeah, Pimp by Iceberg Slim, which I thought was the most important part of both the Bird Revelation and Equanimity. Yeah. It was the most important takeaway from almost pretty much his like entire career almost.
Yeah, it felt like a culmination of something for sure.
Everything that he's gone through in life and working in Hollywood culminated in this example from this book, which I read right after his special. And goddamn, it is like crazy eye-opening.
Dang, I haven't read it. Does reading the book? I mean, I'm sure it adds to the special. What does it add?
Not necessarily adding just to the special itself, because the special is culminated in this one particular story, which happens at the end of the book. Uh-huh. But personally, I like shocking stuff. I mean, I don't watch fucking like people get their heads cut off on YouTube, like all those sick fucks on E-Bombs World or whatever, right back in the day. But I like reading very provocative material because 99.999% of the time I don't agree with it because, I'm an average fucking dude. I'm not really on the fringes, I don't think. But I think it's super important to get those types of people's perspectives because those are real people functioning in the real fucking world that we all like encapsulate. And 90% of people don't really think about what white supremacists think or Black Panthers think or Iceberg Slims of the world think, but their perspective is fucked up as it is. And I've read some fucked up stuff from Black Panther movements and white supremacists and now Iceberg Slim. As fucked up as it is, sometimes there is some incredible insight in there. And whether you agree with it or not is completely different, but it sheds light on something that you never thought of before that rules the lives of millions of people in the world that you don't think about on a daily fucking day, you know, on just like an average day. And
right,
that's what I thought the bird revelation was a new perspective. I get bored very easily, so I constantly need newer like perspectives on certain things. Again, even if I don't agree with all of it. And he gave a different perspective on every major social thing that's happening in Hollywood right now and in America. So whether you agree with what he's saying about transgender or what he's saying about victims of sexual abuse and the Me Too movement, his perspective is an important one to consider because there are a lot more people in the world that think exactly like that than you're willing to consider. And if you don't consider that, then you're disservicing yourself.
Yeah. My first takeaway when I first went through it, and I had a totally different one the second time, not a contradictory one, just a different one, is what was affirmed for me of that through all of those comments about transgender people and the women's movement and Me Too and Louis C.K. and all that stuff that he talked about and spoke harshly about. It really solidified for me that at the end of the day, Dave Chappelle is just going to speak from a black perspective, and to him, amid all of these social movements, for someone to come to him and say, like, why you can't say these things, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, if I'm not articulating this very well, you might have to.
It's fine. I mean, just do your best. Trust me, like, it's hard to articulate this sort of stuff, because it's, again, stuff that you don't really think about. And in order to get a good grasp on it, you need to view this more than once, in my opinion. I got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good ideas from it the first time I viewed it, but it was the second, the third, and the fourth time where I could start repeating lines back to him as he's saying it, that I was really, truly understanding what the man was saying.
Yeah.
So take your time.
So it crystallized as you were talking. Is what I got the first time around is, he says, amid all of these social movements, if you want something and if you want change, don't come complaining to a black person about it. He says, we have our own struggles to deal with. We have, battles that we've fought. We have had movements that we've started. We've had movements that have failed. And, to start nitpicking social movements and start grooming and critiquing me to be your perfect ally is hypocritical, because in terms of the black experience, we have had to take whatever allies we get to make the advances that we have. And so I'm going to get up here and I'm going to think what I think and I'm going to say what I want, because that way, with all of my influence and all of my power as a man and a figure in entertainment, it will teach you to accept an imperfect ally. Because what I have learned within the black experience is that to wait for a perfect ally will kill your movement. That social movements and social change need momentum, and they need to persist through these cultural moments, and they die as soon as we are waiting and relying on the right person to come. You need all the help you can get. You need all the allies you can get. It is not the time to be picking and choosing who you get to invite into your movement. And it's definitely a complicated point and a controversial point, and I think that if you have issue with it, that's valid. Like at the end of the day, I know I'm speaking as just like a young white dude, but I think that it was fascinating to hear him wax on that, and because it is one of the first voices, one of the only voices I've heard amid this cultural moment that basically says, I'll stand up for you and I'll speak for you, but don't ask me to change. Don't ask me to be perfect, because I'm just not going to, and you're going to have to deal with it. That's crazy to me.
I think that epitomizes sort of the antithesis of these sort of movements that are that are created by like our own like people almost. We're fucking millennials too. I'm not some like 50-year-old guy sipping sweet tea on like a rocker being like, I remember back in my day. I'm not. I'm fucking 24 years old. Right. I went to school back east. You went to school in Chicago. These are like bastions of free thinking and liberalism and shit like that.
Yeah.
I wrote on the school paper with so many people that were diehard, jump on a grenade, pussy hat wearing feminists that turned on each other at like a drop of a hat. I would see it every single day, that the second someone stepped out of line, you would get this immediate fucking backlash. And it was like watching, I don't know if you know this, it's a little disturbing, but like if a dog suffers some sort of trauma where its entrails sort of fall out in front of it, it'll eat its own fucking entrails. Yeah. And I know it's disgusting to think, but that's exactly what I see when I see these movements like cannibalize themselves as like a sick dog just tearing at whatever's in front of it because it's fucking afraid and it doesn't know how to create a movement. And I get into discussions with my girlfriend all the time. The reason I love my girlfriend so much is that she disagrees with me all the fucking time, and I greatly appreciate that. And she's for one side of the feminist movement, and I'm for another side. And I think I might be on the Dave Chappelle side. And I think what you just said was encapsulated in one particular part where he's talking about how Colin Kaepernick took a knee for everyone when his belly was full, and he didn't need to think about other people, but he did.
Yes.
We turned our backs on him. We were like, thank you for blowing the whistle, now go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not going to give you any money. You're a football player. And we do this over and over and over again with whistleblowers. We appreciate what they do for us, but then we say, well, fuck you, buddy. I got my own problems. Thanks for making my life better. Good luck with yours. And he says that we should take care of each other. We should like incentivize the strong, the people who come forward. We should make their lives easier for making that sacrifice for us. But also, and more importantly, and more prophetic, like I said, we should forgive the weak, the ones who couldn't do it, the ones who had to give in for social reasons, for reasons of inexperience, for whatever reasons they had. They weren't strong enough to carry the torch. And that's okay. There's 7 billion of us on this planet. We will not all be fucking martyrs. There's no possible way. And with a movement like BLM or the feminist Me Too movement, which is taking center stage as BLM sort of fades out because it just didn't catch that traction for a lot of these same reasons, I'm afraid that it's all going to be for naught. I don't fucking want Harvey Weinstein's, I don't want my girlfriend to be fucking groped at the bar. It sucks, but as a guy, sometimes I feel that there's a bullseye out, and if I say the wrong thing, I'll be like swept aside and cast aside and thrown in with a lot of people who have fucking raped people. He does that joke where Ben Affleck like came out and like tried to help at the beginning, and he's like, I think what's happening to women is terrible, and then he's like, shut the fuck up, you touched a titty in '95, and the guy's like, peace, and pieces out. That's exactly what happens over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And eventually there's not going to be anyone left on the other side who you need to solve this problem stepping forward because they're too afraid.
Yeah, So this week at work, yesterday was Monday, for those listening later, and last week I wrote a piece that ran on our website here at Relevant, and my and I was kind of I felt sort of reluctant to write the piece, but it was my decision to write it. And what it was is I realized at the end of last year, amid this entire women's movement, I was thinking, okay, like I am in this privileged position, and I'm going to go, be a like regular voice for a magazine people can pick up at bookstores. Like and Relevant is a very socially conscious magazine that has a large part of its content is devoted to justice issues, and I was like, this is a huge blind spot for me. And I was talking to a friend who's a big reader, and I'm a big reader too, and she was talking about all these women she enjoyed reading, and I realized, man, I can't remember the last time I read a book by a woman. And it wasn't that I had avoided those books or skirted them. It just wasn't on my radar, and my sort of sphere of reading and the people I had books recommended to me, and people who were sort of like feeding my media diet, so to speak, it was just really male centric. And so I realized I had inadvertently and ignorantly sort of isolated myself away from other perspectives. So I made it a goal in 2018 to split my reading diet 50-50 between male and female authors. And I started the year, I read, for the first 6 weeks, I read, over those 6 weeks, I read 7 books, all by women. And it was, I mean, for someone who had only read a handful in the last, we're talking years, like it was revelatory in some ways. Like I didn't see the light or have an epiphany or anything. That would be silly in 6 weeks. But
yeah,
I did,
life changing.
Yeah, but I did realize what I was missing, and I was compelled to write about it, and I did. And there were a lot of things about that piece. We won't get into the nitty-gritty here, but that piece, I will admit freely, lacked the social maturity to pull off what I had hoped it would. And I did not articulate or express very well what I was hoping to. And I saw a lot of I saw some backlash online, which hasn't happened to me before, and that sort of came to a crest yesterday when a bunch of female authors who follow Relevant got a hold of the piece, and I was just really ripped apart online for it. In many cases deservedly so, and I had some good conversations about it, but it really had me thinking, and this all came literally right after the last thing I did before I left for work was watch the end of the Bird Revelation again. And it had me thinking about allies. And so then all this happened during the day yesterday, and I had to deal with it. And I remember I was talking with some friends after work, and I asked these two women, I said, what do you want in an ally? Because I'm not a good one, but I know I want to be one. And now I am navigating this really challenging space where, I want to, stand up for what I believe is right. I have a privileged position. I have a position also as a writer where I've been given a voice and a platform, and there's a responsibility that comes with that, I think. But I, as was proven yesterday, am not ready in some cases. So I still need to be educated in some senses. I still need to grow in other places. And it just articulated to me this point that Chappelle was making, that, I could either wait until I become this idyllic, perfect, archetypal ally that is good for, all people and all women and all people who don't look like me and people of color and everything, or I could keep taking these chances. And I have no idea what the answer is to that. And I do think that what hit close is his advocacy for that imperfect ally, that we should be, you know, like, we shouldn't be so quick to, and this is not a defense of myself at all, because I still think I was wrong in the piece, but, like, I think his point of embracing the imperfect ally and being able to educate the people who want to support these movements without crushing them into silence, I think is really, really compelling, personally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the ways he framed that you can take issue with, and that's fair, but I find that idea really important, and personally I find it really necessary, because I think, you know, I do see instances, like, I think that Ben Affleck thing, that's real. Like, that's a great joke, but I think that's real. And
it's a great joke because it's real, because I know people that have felt like that. I've felt like that. You know, I'm afraid to take chances too, and I, you know, getting backlash on the internet is nothing, you know, nothing special, but it's how you handle it. You know, you could get onto the message boards with those women and be like, fuck you, you don't fucking know, like, I'm God, fuck you, you know, and just not learn a thing. But I know you. I've known you for a long time. You're one of the smartest people that I know. This is a learning experience, and I have fucked up plenty of times too. Believe me that. Like, I'm the least perfect ally that you possibly could have, right? But I feel compelled to help just like you, because I recognize that this is fucked up. This is not the society that I want to be raised in. This is not the society where I want to spend hopefully the next 60 years of my life before I pass away in my bed, you know? But I'm not going to be perfect just like you. I'm going to have to learn on the job. I try and pay as close attention when people who I really respect, people, my elders, people who I think are smarter than me, talk, because I want to see, what are they saying? Do I agree with it? Okay, why? Do I disagree with it? All right, that's good. Why? Sometimes disagreeing is just as important as agreeing. You just need to know why. So, I don't know, man. If you're feeling bad about what you wrote, or the backlash or anything like that, don't. Because without fucking up, you will never learn, ever. And with anything that you do, you know? Especially writing. I'm not a writer, I'm a talker, you know? I'm like the talking half of this podcast, pretty much. You're the talented writer. But in a way, they're sort of similar in that I say outlandish shit all the fucking time, and I get in trouble all the time. I have a memory bank full of just really bad stuff that I said to someone that I definitely shouldn't have said because I thought it was funny. And it ended up having a negative reaction, a negative effect. But it's because I fucked up that I am a funnier person now, I think, and a more insightful person. I'm not fucking Mahatma Gandhi, but, you know, I try and be the best that I possibly can, and that's from fucking up and learning from my mistakes, you know? So I'd love to read this article. I don't know if it's still up. It got pulled?
No. Yeah, they pulled it.
Really? Do you have a copy? 1 second, I gotta charge my phone or plug in my laptop.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably find one.
We're professionals here. I'm fucking charging a laptop in the middle of a podcast. It's fine. We'll cut that in post. But I can tell you're like really beat up about it, and just know that it's not the end of the world, man. You'll learn from this. You will be a better writer and a better person. I fucking guarantee that. Because I've seen shittier writers than you become even better because of fuck-ups, and you're already a good writer. So,
thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, the backlash doesn't really bother me, and the piece getting pulled doesn't bother me. I think it should have been, and I support their decision to do it. But you know, I think what's still left for me to parse out is, you know, is that response that Chappelle is talking about and that you're talking about. I think now, okay, I know I want my next move to, you know, be toward maturation, to be toward something a little wiser, a little more informed, a a little more considerate, and like it's the how now, because there's definite dangers and quagmires that you could fall into now. Like go online and enter the wrong space and say, I have a bunch of questions, and suddenly you get, it's not my job to educate you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, all right, well, that's fair. So, okay, I have to educate myself. Okay, where do I go? Who can I ask? Someone else, someone over here. I mean, now this like challenge of navigating this space is complicated, and I think I think what you're making me appreciate is how Chappelle sort of bucked all of what I had hoped or wanted from his special. I saw, the bird revelation. We're getting another 45 minutes of jokes. Great.
I know, right?
and it was 10 minutes of jokes and 35 minutes of teaching
from some real ass shit. And especially that story, like me and my girlfriend, we're sitting on the couch. It's just us, so we could talk and ask questions of each other, like while the thing's going on, and we could pause like the show and press play and shit like that whenever we wanted. But for that entire end part of Iceberg Slim, which I'll say again, encapsulate everything about his fucking career, his experiences in Hollywood, his experiences in American society, and us being a capitalist society and one of the true, pure capitalist societies, kind of left in the planet, and sort of what that looks like when there is no law with it. We're capitalists, but we're not laissez-faire. We have some laws in place so that the iceberg slims in the world can't fuck the poor girls, the poor bottom bitches of the world. And in Dave Chappelle, I think what he's trying to say, especially in regards to the very last line of what could possibly be his career in stand-up, or at least televised stand-up, I don't know if he's going to come back. I don't know if I want him to come back. This is a drop-the-mic sort of performance, and I don't know if he should pick up unless he really, truly has something important to say. This is a man who picks his words very fucking carefully. So if he's not going to make a good point, he's not going to come back. But the last thing that he said about the Iceberg Slim story and how it was all a fucking scam and the pimp fucked the bottom bitch and now we got ourselves a secret. That's why I went to Africa. What he's trying to say is Hollywood is the fucking Iceberg Slim. You are the bottom bitch, Dave Chappelle. You were about to walk away from money. You don't walk away from that, all right? If you're not going to make this industry money, then you're not going to make fucking money for yourself either. You're either going to make this studio money or we're going to ruin your fucking career. And they tried doing that. And goddamn if Dave Chappelle isn't fucking bulletproof and he came back. After these specials, I did my research and I started going on. I'm like, all right, what are people saying about these specials? Bad fucking reviews. New York Times lambasted him, said he was fucking transphobic and shit like that. And I'm like, I was confused. I was like, fuck, were we not listening to like the same thing? Like he was harsh, but I felt fair. Or not as, he at least gave both perspectives. I didn't necessarily know which one was his opinion and which one was just a different perspective, but I thought that he was able to give credit where credit was due and criticize where he thought criticism was fair. And you don't have to agree with that. Again, I didn't agree with everything that the man says, but I could at least appreciate that honesty of looking at something and being like, I agree with this and I disagree with this. Here are my arguments why. That's a smart person. Someone who just gets on the fucking TV, just gets on the internet and screams at a bunch of people that this is stupid and this is shit and these people suck, blah, 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 without really backing anything up or really giving anything substantial to the argument. That's nothing. That's easy to do. I mean, we could do that. We could be like a fucking like conservative or liberal podcast where we just go on and bash the other side. It's a lot harder to look at both sides of the issue. Socrates used to say in his classes, if you can defend one argument well, perfect. But a true master, someone who can really see both sides of the issue, can defend both sides of the argument just as well. And this is a man who can do that. He's mastered it. And Iceberg Slim, the revelations of the pimp, is that to a T. And you can take that capitalist manifesto and apply it to a lot of things in our society, and it would fit pretty goddamn well.
Yeah, and I think the response too is, I mean, I think it proves his point in a way where I find it a little surprising, and found it surprising from the outset that people weren't giving him more of the benefit of the doubt in terms of Dave Chappelle has been one of our smartest social commentators for decades.
Yeah, my generation at least.
Yeah, and then, you know, all of a sudden he's just like a grumpy old man on stage, like mad at the world changing around him. I mean, just something about that always felt like, I wonder if we're missing the point.
Yeah, I don't buy it. It seems like he's been written off.
Yeah, and now it really does feel like he expected this kind of response. He baited this hook. Everyone bit it, and now he's saying, "You have proved my point exactly. Here I am, someone who genuinely cares about social justice and issues, and the moment I say one thing wrong, everything that I have done is negated. You can't just reject one part of me, you reject every part of me, and that is your mistake." And I think how he leaves that realization up to us now is powerful, man. Like, it is, and talking through it like this, I don't think happened enough. I think a lot of people, you know, and this is kind of the way criticism is now, like, you know, a lot of people watched it and then wrote about it, and there wasn't a lot of discussion about it. That discussion took place in these singular one-way streets where, you know, writers posted their take or their response, and then a lot of people commented, you know, and I think he sort of he exposed the flaws in that, and the answers or the solutions or the lesson that he was trying to teach was in the special the whole time.
Yeah. It was a life. That's why I said, when the special was over, I turned to my girlfriend and I'm like, I don't mean to be dramatic, and I might have been a little tipsy at the time, but I was like, the guy he's kind of like the Socrates of our time, you know? He's not just a comedian, he's a philosopher. These are different ways of looking at society and life. And not everyone agreed with fucking Socrates. They killed the motherfucker, you know? Hopefully this guy doesn't get Malcolm X because some blogger didn't fucking like his take on the feminist movement. That's something, like, kind of ridiculous. What I really appreciate, again, is his candor, his ability to be... And he said this multiple times, especially in that last episode, when there were 3 or 4 people in the audience who didn't laugh at a particular joke. He would turn to them and he'd be like, I know you're right, I know. But just bear with me for a second here and just consider this. And I think he did a beautiful job of summarizing that. I can't remember if it was in the Bird Revelation or Equanimity, but I think it was actually in the Bird Revelation because that was a smaller audience. He looks at the back of the audience and he goes, I know that there are a lot of comedians in the back, because he was at the Comedy Store in the Belly Room, which is, you know, he was at the Comedy Store, which has like a huge pedigree for a lot of really good comedians, very influential comedians come out of it. And he looks to the back and he goes, I know there's a lot of comedians back there, and I have to say, you have an obligation to talk recklessly. Otherwise, my kids may never know what reckless talk is.
Yeah. Oh, man. What a line. I remember it.
So I guess this ties back to your article. Like, if you're feeling bad about what you wrote, I don't know, don't, because of this line. And if you're not feeling bad and you're taking it as like an opportunity to learn and stuff like that, or to pose a question that people didn't, because at the very least... Even if you don't agree with what you said and, you know, you're glad that it got pulled and stuff like that, you started a dialogue. And that's important because we don't get any of that shit. I can't even start a political dialogue without my dad, without him just completely shutting off and being like, oh, I'm going to go watch Fox News. It's fine if you watch Fox News. I fucking watch Fox News all the time. But I also watch a bunch of liberal shit. I watch a bunch of independent shit. I watch a bunch of feminist stuff. I watch a bunch of fucking Joe Rogan stuff. He's not a feminist by any measure, you know. I try and get as many perspectives as possible because I need a dialogue. I'm not the type of person to sit there and just have someone keep river beating the same bullshit into my head over and over again. It's impossible that 420 million fucking people in the United States all think like this guy. It's not fucking sane, to think that way. So there's one obligation. If you're a comedian and you've accidentally clicked on the wrong thumbnail and arrived at our video, you have a fucking obligation. Everyone has an obligation to talk recklessly, to create dialogue, to ask questions. Don't be the kid in class that doesn't raise his hand when he's lost, because 2 hours later, you're not going to fucking get it if you're missing this big chunk of the equation. You have to figure that shit out as soon as the question pops into your head. And I think you did that. You opened up your horizons, man. And that's tough to do, especially in this day and age where people are so quick to become tribalistic and turn on each other and be the dog that eats its own guts when it's hurt.
Yeah. I think I don't regret the experience, and I'm still doing what I set out to do, and I put that out with all kinds of checks and considerations and thoughtfulness, and it didn't feel perfect, and it maybe didn't feel ready, but I also had a feeling that it was never really going to feel that way, so let's see what happens. I don't regret what I said. I wish I had said it, another way, but this has been really valuable to me, and there have been a couple people who approached it really thoughtfully and didn't just trash my education or my career. So
awesome. You're always going to get those people, man. I bet if God forbid this anything that we do ever takes off, I guarantee you there's going to be a bunch of people telling us to go kill ourselves. That happen in high school all the time. I imagine it'll happen in the broader world.
Yeah. So thanks for saying that, and I feel like I'm in a good spot. I'm not losing any more sleep over this, but
cool.
It was cool that Chappelle sort of met me in that spot where now because of that his diverse perspective in my life, I can learn something and step out of myself a little bit and think, I do realize where I was wrong, and I do see a path forward.
Cool, man. Cool. This is a good talk. I could talk for hours about these specials, but
yeah, it's rich, man.
Yeah, it is really rich. I highly recommend watching them. You may not walk away being, changed. You may not have a revelation of your own, but at the very least, I hope anyone listening to this who goes out and then watches these specials, you can find them on Netflix pretty much only, unless you want to rip them off somewhere else on the cheap. They watch this and they walk away at least with some questions. You're not going to get a bunch of answers. It's like Lost season 3, just questions on questions on questions, man. It's a thinker. All right, do you want to do the gangbang?
Yeah, let's do the GB. Listen, my rec, I'll keep it real simple. The Good Place, the NBC sitcom from Mike Schur. It's his. I don't even know what number sitcom it is for him, but it's his show after Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And
interesting.
The Good Place is awesome. It ended its second season 2 weeks ago. I think this is one of the best half-hour comedies on TV. I think it's one of the best since Parks and Rec, for sure. It's awesome. The basic premise, if you haven't found your way in yet, is that Kristen Bell wakes up in the Good Place, which is how the show refers to heaven, and Ted Danson is sitting behind a desk as the angel welcoming her there. And the conflict is she was not supposed to end up in the Good Place. She was supposed to go to the bad place. And her journey over season 1 and season 2 to a degree is basically wrestling with the question, what does it mean to be a good person? If you're not a good person, who is the judge of that? Who gets to judge that? If you want to become a better person, what does it take? And so the show sort of wrestles with all of these philosophical morality questions while giving you a really clever, funny sitcom, with the best part of which is Ted Danson, who I think, bizarre to say this as a 24-year-old, but Ted Danson is probably my favorite TV actor. He's fantastic on this show. I have seen most of Cheers, too, and I love him on that. He's a pure delight. The Good Place is one of the smartest shows on TV, and it's really funny, too. Highly recommend it. You can find it on Hulu. The whole show is on Hulu, and the first season is on Netflix.
Cool. Is it what channel is it on? Is it NBC?
Yep,
for
NBC.
Those lamos who want yeah. Those yeah, sorry, I keep fucking cutting you off in your joke. Continue, punchline.
No, it's because home of every Mike Shore show.
Oh, fucking
ever.
Yeah, I know, right? As soon as you said, like, oh, it's kind of like Parks and Rec, I'm like, I bet it's on fucking NBC. But yeah, if you feel like watching it weekly, then I guess you can try and find when it's on NBC. Sounds good. Kristen Bell, man. I haven't seen her in anything since like Forgetting Sarah Marshall and that one commercial with. You know, she's married to Dax Shepard.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
He makes a cameo in season 2 that's really funny.
That's funny. I don't particularly think Dax Shepard's that funny, but I've always loved Kristen Bell, and I've always wondered why the fuck she doesn't get like more roles. I don't know. Maybe she was being a mom or something like that. That's cool, though. I'll check that out. My recommendation for this week's GB, to bring it back home to Dave Chappelle, because whenever I watch something that really excites me, I try and find as much like in-depth information as possible. That's how I came up with that Doom recommendation last week. But you should watch the Dave Chappelle Iconoclast series interview with Maya Angelou. And what I don't know if you know about Iconoclast or not. It was like an old show that used to run on the independent film channel IFC, and essentially they would take these figureheads in whatever community they were doing the special on that were on like opposing sides, and just get them into a room together and see what would happen. And so you have Maya Angelou, who was huge figure in the civil rights movement. She's a poet. She's a writer. I guess she has her own podcast. She passed away, a few years ago. God rest her soul. But she's a very sort of like tame, poetic, beautiful, whimsical, full of wisdom, like older lady who was there at the beginning when MLK and Malcolm X and stuff were fighting for people like Dave Chappelle, and you have Dave Chappelle, who is smart and whimsical and is now old, but this is an old episode. When this was filmed, he was maybe in his 20s or 30s, but he's very bombastic, says the F word, says the N word like a whole bunch, which Maya Angelou is very much against black people calling each other the N word, and they're both such intelligent and poetic people, but in completely different ways, that when you see them interact with each other, there were a couple of moments where I teared up. And Maya Angelou, has one particular story about Tupac that I kind of just paused it and just kind of thought about that for a second. And even now, kind of tearing up about it. It was really incredible to hear her talk about someone who, iconoclast in the making, someone who is angry about the same things that she was angry about, hates sort of in the same way that she probably hated, but channeled it in a completely different way with, really fucking deep, heavy rap music, and how she was able to break him down, essentially. I don't want to give too much away, but it's really powerful. Anyway, it's 45 minutes. You should watch it. You can find it on YouTube. Easy. Just put in Iconoclast Dave Chappelle, Iconoclast Maya Angelou, and you'll get it. I highly recommend it.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Do it. Awesome. Hey, that'll do it for this episode. Emilio, if the listener wants to find more of you on the internet, where can they do that?
Well, you can find our channel, Dude Is This Thing On YouTube. Just go to YouTube.com/Dude Is This Thing On, or you can just search Dude Is This Thing On in the old Searcherino bar. If you want to find me personally, you can look up the Cariati Kid. It's just pretty much all the same videos that we have on our channel. And you can also find me on Xbox Live if you ever want a game or just tell me I'm a EVL space Elmo, ELMO. I appreciate all mail, hateful or insightful.
Awesome. If you want to follow my work, you can follow me on Twitter at Tyler Daswick. I post all of it there, or you can go to relevantmagazine.com to read my culture writing. But thanks, everyone. That will do it for this episode of Dude, Is This Thing On? We will see you next time.
See you guys. Have a good one.